Good afternoon, distinguished speakers, moderator, and esteemed participants. My name is Aninita Hapsari, Avolu and Climate Officer at the Institute for Essential Services Reform, or IESR. I'll be your Master of Ceremony for today's webinar. On behalf of IESR, I would like to warmly welcome all of you for today's webinar titled 76 Years of Indonesia-China Relations, Advancing Cooperation in Clean Energy and Green Development. Today's webinar serves as a strategic platform to bring together policymakers, industry actors, financial institutions, and research organizations to explore opportunities for strengthening Indonesia and China cooperation, particularly in advancing clean energy and green development. We are honored to have distinguished speakers joining us today who will share their insight on renewable energy, green investment, and clean technology development between Indonesia and China. Our session today will begin with welcoming remarks, followed by presentations from our invited speakers. And after that, we will have a moderated discussion and Q&A session before concluding the webinar. Without further ado, I would like to invite Mr. Agus Praditya Tampubolon, Director of Climate and Just Energy Transition at IESR, to deliver the welcoming remarks and also officially open today's webinar. Mr. Agus, the floor is yours.
Very much, Anin. Good afternoon, distinguished speakers, panelists, colleagues, partners, and all participants from Indonesia, from China, and from across the region. I would like to say thank you for joining us today in attending this webinar. As we all know, this year marks the 76th anniversary of diplomatic relations between Indonesia and China, a milestone that I think reflects not only a long-standing partnership between the two countries, but also an evolving one, which is shaped by the changing global realities and a shared aspiration for a better future. Today's conversation is happening at a time when the global energy landscape is under a real pressure. We are not just talking about a transition anymore, but we are currently navigating through a crisis. Across Southeast Asia, including in Indonesia, we are facing overlapping challenges from the geopolitical tensions, volatile global energy prices, and also the always existing increasing climate risks. Recent conflicts in the Middle East have once again exposed a fundamental vulnerability, which is our structural dependence on the imported fossil fuel, particularly oil and gas. What this really means is simple. Energy is no longer just about a technical issue. It affects the economic, social, and also strategic aspect of our lives. Raising fuel prices translate into inflation in many countries. Governments face growing fiscal pressure from subsidies, and for many people, energy affordability becomes an immediate concern. And importantly, we think this situation did not come out of nowhere. It is predictable. It is a result of a prolonged reliance on the fossil fuels, combined with the delayed effort to diversify into renewable energy. In Indonesia, we have set a clear ambition. The government has committed to increase the share of renewable energy. But reaching that target is not something that Indonesia can achieve without relying on support. It is something that requires strong strategic international cooperation, requires partnership that are not only beneficial economically, but will also a transformative. And this brings us to the significance of today's moment. As we commemorate the 76th year of Indonesia-China relation, we are also looking at a very practical opportunity, how this partnership can evolve to address today's most pressing challenge, energy transition, and also the green development. Both Indonesia and China are among the world's fastest growing economies. Our cooperation has deepened over the years through trade, investment, major initiatives such as the Belt and Road Initiative. China has also been Indonesia's largest trading partner for more than 1 decade, and Indonesia continues to be the key destination for Chinese investment. But the relationship goes beyond economic. People-to-people connections are also growing stronger. Uh, with tens of thousands of Indonesian students studying in China and a significant rise in Chinese visitors to Indonesia have also been seen in the recent years. So we think the foundation is already there. Government to government, business to business, and people to people channels are currently open and active. The question is now, how do we make this cooperation more forward-looking, but also aligned with the global climate goals? China has emerged as a global leader in renewable energy, both in terms of deployment and manufacturing. This presents a clear opportunity for Indonesia. However, if we look at investment trends over the past 2 decades, a significant portion of China's investment in Indonesia unfortunately has been directed toward fossil fuel related sectors from oil and gas, from mining, including the coal-fired power plant. At the same time, Indonesia's energy transition requires a substantial financing, estimated in the number around 30 to 40 billion US dollar annually through 2050 to accelerate the energy transition in Indonesia. There is also a growing alignment at the policy level. China's latest development strategies increasingly emphasizes the green growth, renewable energy, and industrial upgrading. These priorities resonate with Indonesia's own development agenda. Alignment on paper alone is not enough. The real challenge is the implementation. How do we translate these shared priorities into concrete projects, scaled investment, and a meaningful technical cooperation? This means redirecting investment flows from fossil towards renewable energy and green infrastructure. It also means strengthening collaboration on technology transfer, green finance, low carbon industry development. So that's exactly why today's discussion matters. IESR, we pleased to convene to host this webinar as a platform for a strategic dialogue to bring together key stakeholders from Indonesia, from China, to explore how Indonesia-China cooperation can move from potential to practice, particularly in advancing and strengthening the clean energy and green development. We are honored, and I would like to say thank you to the distinguished speakers that have attended this webinar, that will share their perspective, will share their expertise. Mr. Riyadi, Ms. Hong Miao, my colleague, Mr. Alvin, and Ms. Ting Lee. I hope and I'm confident that today's discussion will offer all of us a valuable insights, not only about the challenges that we are facing, but more importantly, what are the opportunities beyond these challenges and how we can reach them. So the energy transition, once again, is not about shifting technologies. It is about reshaping partnership. And in the context of Indonesia and China relation, we think Indonesia and China have unique opportunity by building cooperation model that is sustainable, inclusive, and hopefully future-oriented. So I hope today's conversation will contribute to that direction. Thank you once again for being here, participate in this webinar, and we look forward to a rich and forward-looking discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Agus, for your insightful welcoming remarks. And before we proceed to the presentation session, we would like to take a quick group photo and kindly turn on your cameras so we can capture this moment together. On the count of three, please give. Okay, thank you everyone. And I would like also to kindly remind all of the participants to fill out the attendance and feedback form, which will be shared through the chat box during this session. And without further ado, we now move on to the next agenda item of today's session, the presentation and discussion. This session will be facilitated by our moderator, Mr. Arif Rosadi, Manager of Diplomacy and Global Affairs at IESR, who will guide us through the discussion. And now I now hand over to Mr. Arif, and the floor is yours, Mr. Arif.
Yeah, thank you, Mbak Adin, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arif Rosadi, Manager of Diplomacy and Global Affairs, ISR, and I will be your moderator for today's discussion. In this discussion, we will discuss on advancing Indonesia-China bilateral cooperation, specifically on clean energy and green development cooperation. And we have four distinguished panelists that will address specific topic from People Network on green business to unlocking the potential for clean technology and innovation development. And each panelist will present their slide deck around 15 minutes and answer one the brief question or follow-up question before we move to another panelist. I also would like to apologize in advance to our distinguished panelists if during this presentation, if necessary, I will be interrupting the presentation due to our limited time. And for participants who have a question to our distinguished panelists, I would like to encourage participants to type your question in the chat book, and in the Q&A session, I will deliver your question to our distinguished panelists. And without further ado, for the first opportunity, I would like to invite Bapak Riyadi Suparno, Executive Director, Tenggara Strategic. Pak Riyadi will present a mapping modalities, Indonesia-China people-to-people network on green business development. Pak Riyadi, the floor is yours.
My PPT here directly. Can you hear my voice, Pak Arif? Oh, good. Thank you. Can you see my presentation already there? Now it's okay? This is okay. But display, hang on. Oh, okay. Then, okay, I'll let you share the screen then. Oh, thank you. All right, thank you, Pak Arif. Thank you, everyone, and thank you especially for ISR for having me in this webinar, the 70 years of Indonesia-China relations. Well, today, as you see in the title, that I will discuss how Indonesia-China people-to-people network can contribute to green business development and energy transition. I think this is something that we can share, discuss it later. Okay, next slide, please. So this is just a talking point, the agenda for today that we will discuss. Here I will give you some cases, one is on EV, which is actually the one that the model that works now, and then on green data center and also in 100 gigawatt solar program. Okay, next. All right, this is relations beyond trade. So if you see then, when we talk about Indonesia-China relations, we often focus on the trade numbers or even in investment flows. You can see from the right graph over there that we have strong FDI flows from China and Hong Kong Of course, the highest is still Singapore, but combined, China and Hong Kong is, I think, can overtake Singapore. And then in terms of trade, Indonesia is China for Indonesia is the biggest trading partner, and that's already been in the past 10 years or more even. But you know, as you see in the left side, beside that, on investment and trade, we have also 20,000 Indonesian students in China, although we have only like about 1,000 Chinese students in Indonesia. But more than that, we have 82,000 Chinese workers in Indonesia, which is actually account for 45% of foreign workers in Indonesia. And also mentioned by Mas Agus before that we have 1.34 million Chinese tourists coming to Indonesia last year. So it's already, yeah. Now you can go to the next. We have, you see, you can just point out some constraint there. Of course, language barriers. We have like, you know, even if we have discussion now, Indonesia and China, we always use English. Rarely we use Mandarin because, you know, very few Indonesian can speak Mandarin. And then, of course, we have regulatory differences, trust issue, and then limited number of matchmaking, although we will discuss it later. And then we have also weak connection between industry and academia, especially in Indonesia. So we can learn from China on that. And then we have lack of sustained collaboration mechanism, especially from outside the government level. Okay, next slide, please. This is why I put this slide is quite interesting actually. This is article from New York Times on April 23rd. You can see from the title, as US brands stumble, China wins over young Indonesians. So basically it said, you know, they don't know when exactly it happened, but suddenly China is everywhere in Jakarta and other big cities in Indonesia, taking over many American brands, you know, like Chinese cosmetic, EV is on the road, and then also restaurants, and even, you know, so many other products, even handphones and other consumer goods. So this is reflecting the reality, actually, the story from New York Times here. You can go next. Here, I point out to some survey results with pointing that Indonesian perception of China is becoming more positive now. In the past, you know, maybe before before 10 years from now, Indonesian perception of China is quite negative. But now it's very different. It can be reflected in this survey, you know. One of them is by USOC Institute in Singapore. Actually, they are conducting survey in Southeast Asia. But I just pulled out the story about Indonesia, where 73% of Indonesians support closer ties with China, which is actually an increase from 54%. 54% in 2023, 73% in 2024. Compared with Indonesian support for US, which is going down from 46 in 2023 to 27% in 2024. This reflects that Indonesian society, Indonesian people, is becoming more favorable toward China than the US. And also this is a survey by Celios in 2024, that 70% of Indonesians believe China hold the most influence in Indonesia. And 60% of them see this because of economic opportunities. And also this is the indicator politic. Although Indonesia see the US is very powerful in terms of military, but Indonesians see China as powerful in terms of economy. So this is the situation that we are having now. Okay, go next. Yes. So what relation Indonesia and China initially is very much driven by government to government, and it's very true during President Jokowi administration. The 10 years of Jokowi presidency is bringing Indonesia closer to China. His personal relationship with President Xi helped that very much, actually. During his presidency in 10 years, President Jokowi visited China 8 times, and he met with President Xi 12 times in China, Indonesia, and also in other part of the world for international events. And President Prabowo, the first visit after being elected of president, is also going to China. So this is actually a good kind of driving force. And then from there, business is also flourishing, especially during the 10 years of Pak Jokowi administration. You can see the downstreaming, nickel downstreaming there, and then you can see the energy sector. You see, of course, you have a lot of PLTU being built, but also you have the other infrastructure like the toll road, like the high-speed rail. And then also Pak Jokowi bring a lot of Chinese manufacturers to Indonesia for EV, for example. So that's the corporate level. And then in the people-to-people level that we already discussed before, that Indonesian are viewing China more positively. That's why you have more and more Indonesian students studying in China now. All right, next. This is the case that I said before that I want to present a case study why something working here. The EV ecosystem. Why the EV, China EV entering Indonesia massively now accounts for 90% of EV market in Indonesia. And EV market is also increasing in terms of the total automotive sales in Indonesia. Now it's maybe about 10 to 15%. It's quite big, And why is that happen? Because Indonesia, one is over incentive. You got a lot of incentive for manufacturing, incentive for consumers, and we have a lot of incentive. And then we promise the market. And then also we have this nickel, as a source of a battery. But this is actually less relevant for Chinese EV because Chinese EV is not using nickel, but using iron. And this is matching with China capabilities in terms of EV because China is the global leaders in EV production and also the global leaders in terms of battery. So this model, I think, can be replicated to other sector. Okay, next. I just mentioned here the green data center. Why I put this? Because of the opportunity from both sides, actually. You see, Indonesia is the largest economy in the region and also the largest digital economy in the region. According to Google, Temasek, and Bain, we have about 90 billion digital economy. And yet our data center is only less than 500 megawatt in terms of capacity, compared with 1.4 gigawatt in Singapore and then 1.3 gigawatt in Malaysia, which is actually, this is not reflecting our strengths. While in terms of China power, they have this all hyperscalers, Alibaba, Tencent, Huawei, Baidu, ByteDance. They need all these data centers. But they don't put it in Indonesia at the moment. They put it in Singapore, they put it in Malaysia. Like TikTok data center is not in Indonesia. So that's actually the opportunity. And if, Tenggara conducted this study on green data center, and one of the main barrier is that Indonesia really don't put this sector as one of the priority. That's why the Indonesian government, they don't give any incentive. And the most problematic issue with green data center is that Indonesia, they They don't provide this access to renewable energy. Most of the hyperscalers like Amazon or then AWS, they always want to have direct access to renewable energy. And the last, and also the worst, Indonesia, they don't have one institution that cater to this industry. That's why this is according to IT Pro, the Association of Data Centers. When they need to build one data center, they need to go through 8 to 9 institutions in the government to process the licenses. That doesn't include, like the Preman groups, the society like that. So this is the potential, actually, the potential Indonesia can offer to China. If Indonesia, like in EV, they can offer the incentive, the demand is already there. So it's just need the government attention. Okay, next. This is another potentials because Indonesia has this program. I think IESR is very clear about this 100 gigawatt solar program. Although the government initially want to build this 100 giga in the village level, in 80,000 villages across Indonesia. But it turned out not like that, We just see the roadmap from the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Out of the 100 gigawatts, you have some, actually, almost half of them actually utility scales, although it is spread in different parts of the country, mostly in Java. And then you have solar rooftop. And I think that's the area that we can collaborate with China. If the demand is already there, what you need is actually the government focus in providing incentive to attract investment, including investment in manufacturing on solar PV. And here actually, like institution like IESR can play an important role in facilitating, dialogue between the two countries. Okay, next. All right, this is maybe something you are wondering why I put this picture. So this picture is actually the picture of two couples from China. They have the pre-wedding photo sessions in Bromo. But when they posted this, many Chinese netizens accuse the photo being AI generated. They don't believe it is a real photo. But then the creators, they argue this is the real photo, they're not AI generated. So they show the behind the scenes videos and everything. Then people in China, they believe it, and then more and more people visiting Bromo because of that. So I want to say this, you can create a kind of viral things to attract people-to-people interaction. I think it also can happen with 100 giga solar power program. If you can create one project which is very successful in one village, for example, invested by China, then maybe more and more investment from China coming into the solar energy. Okay, next. Okay. Okay, so this is, all right, I'll just go through quickly. This is our program from Tenggara and CSIS, the RA China Investment Program. This is a platform to generate what to call it, interaction between financiers and investors from China and project owners from Indonesia. Okay, next. So this is just maybe like summarizing, like we need to have this kind of joint efforts, how to improve people-to-people interactions. And then on the right side is actually from the government side, what they should do, especially to facilitate, to give supports, and also possibly giving some incentive. Okay, next. This is my last slide. So if the government alignment may initiate the cooperation between China and Indonesia, and business may scale it up, but I think people-to-people network will sustain it for the long term. So only with people and people network, the cooperation will sustain. Thank you, Mas Arif. Sorry for this bit extended hour.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pariyadi, for your insight presentation. One point that I would like highlight is we have a strong modalities in the people-to-people connection, and also there are a lot potential for project pipeline. But I have one follow-up question very quickly. In your perspective, what element that you see is still lacking in terms of people-to-people connection, and how can this modality strategically leverage to accelerate green business development? Pariyadi.
Very limited number of platforms for people-to-people interactions. Like in civil society forum, for example, I noticed, IESR also involved in that, the one that initiated by Sequoia, for example, that you have a regular meeting between those people in energy transition in Indonesia and those people from China who are interested in this sector. I think that needs to be institutionalized or something like that. This is one area that I can see. The other thing is the civil society cooperation between China and Indonesia needs to be partner with corporate levels. In terms of real investment, is actually coming from the corporate level. If that can be combined, I think it will become very powerful if you want to accelerate this green cooperation between China and Indonesia.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pariyadi, for your quick answer. Next, we will move to Ms. Hong Miao, Deputy Country Director, World Research Institute, China. Ms. Hong will present China role in the global energy transition, implication and opportunities for Indonesia-China cooperation. Ms. Hong, the floor is yours.
Okay, great. So, okay, thank you. Thank you, Eric. And good afternoon, and dear friends and distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, really, thank you for IESR's inviting me to be here. I mean, to just talk about China's role in global energy transition and on the significant implications and opportunities bring for Indonesia-China, say, clean energy cooperation. I think it's a really important topic now. And I think I see at a time when the countries, accelerating efforts to enhance energy security, competitiveness and climate resilience, partnerships like between China and Indonesia are really important, increased more and more important, I think. And we really hope this sharing will often not only broader perspective, but also practical and actionable idea for advancing cooperation. So let me just very, very brief to introduce the WI, which I'm working for. Actually, WI is an independent global resources organization that works to improve people's life, protect and restore nature, and also stabilize the climate. I think we combine the research, data, evidence, and the global experience with on the ground. Partnerships to help turn idea into action. So that's quite interesting, I think, and also scale the solutions across the systems, such as energy, food, land, and water, and cities. I think all of these are really, really important now, especially for the circumstance of currently, say, geopolitical and global situation. I think over the past 7 years, our overseas investment, say, team in the power sector actually make some efforts and say to especially away from fossil fuel towards the renewable energy. I think building on that work, we are now placing the greater emphasis on the global South-South collaboration in energy transition and also say same times say for the industry decarbonization with aim to deliver co-benefits of people, nature, and say climates. So that's really WI. And we may just start actually. Next slide, please. Okay, thank you. So let me just a very brief start from the global energy transition. Today, energy transition is no longer just a conceptual and not just a future plan. So, but really the trends and what is happening has yielded concrete and visible results across the world. And according to the latest IEA, I have some data and say charts and say the photos, but I think I don't want to detail one by one, but I would like to just give some points. I mean, from this information, I mean, for the latest IEA report, solar PV capacity additions increased by 10 times from 2015 to 2024. And with nearly 540 gigawatts added in 1 year, 2024 year. Over the same period, capacity additions for wind also increased dramatically from 65 gigawatts to around 115 gigawatts. Although there has been some year-to-year stable and not same, not very say very light, straight light. It's a little bit of say volatility. So it's a little bit say up and down, but roughly it's really increased dramatically. And at the same time, global investment in energy sector rose to US 3.2 trillion in 2024, compared with an annual average of US 2.6 trillion US dollar over the previous decades. So the investment really increased dramatically at same period. More important, and I think the share of investment going to sectors other than fossil fuel has increased also deeply and also quickly. 10 years ago, spending on low emission power, grid, low emission fuels, efficiency, and end use sectors tailored around 1 trillion US dollar, accounting for less than 40% of a global total. By 2024, 1 year, I mean, that figure has raised to more than 2 trillion US dollar, representing over 60% of the total. So this, we can really see the trends and also what happens around the world. And I think maybe next slides, please. Okay, so against this global background, I think, I mean, China's domestic energy transition also make very quickly progress. I think, according to the analysis by BNEF, China's power generation capacity is undergoing, say, a profound transformation. I think it's quite obviously from 2020 to 2030, this 10 years, the case. China's total installed capacity is projected to near triple, increasing from around, say, 2,200 gigawatts to over 3,300 gigawatts. I think the most striking shift is the rapid growth of low carbon and renewable energy, which is gradually replacing coal's historic dominance in the power system. I think this changing is quite obviously. Coal-fired capacity, which formed the largest single share in 2020, is projected to remain relatively flat over the decades. By contrast, solar and wind power are expanding at extremely fast, very quickly increased. Solar capacity is expected to rise from less than 300 gigawatts in 2020, year to 2020, to more than 2,600 gigawatts by 2030. while wind capacity is also expected to more than double from roughly 500 gigawatts to over 1,200 gigawatts during the same period. So I think by 2030, according to the projections, renewable energies, of course, including the solar, PV, hydro, and storage, are set to account for the majority of China's total installed capacity, power generation, say, installed capacity, making a clear break from the coal reliance past to underscoring the China's accelerating transition towards the clean energy system. So next slide, please. Okay, thank you. I think beyond domestic progress, China has built very strong across the entire clean energy supply chain, covering manufacturing, engineering, construction, and also investments. In manufacturing perspective, China holds a leading position in the world for solar PV. China accounts for more than 80% of global manufacturing capacity and over 85% of total production. I think it's really the arguments about overcapacity really harmed, say, this sector. Now it's a really big argument now. And of course, for wind power, China produces more than two-thirds of the world's wind turbines, equipments, and more than 70% of casting and key components. So that's from a manufacturer capacity. And in international engineering and construction perspective, Chinese companies rank among the world's leading international contractors. Several are listed among the global top 10 in power engineering, with a strong capacity in EPC projects, deliver and large-scale infrastructure development. In overseas power investments, I mean, a landmark change took place actually in 2020, when Chinese overseas investment in renewable energy, mainly solar and PV and wind, exceeds the investment in fossil fuel power generation. I mean, of course, say, since Indonesia, like China, say the resources of coal is quite rich. It's the same situation. And for the first time, actually, China overseas investment on power sector really shifted. I mean, everybody, I think we can say, of course, I mean, say, since wind and solar capacity, manufacturing capacity also increased quickly. And that's why, I mean, say the Chinese pledge, of course, is very, very important. I think in September 2021, I mean, China President Xi just announced, I mean, just stop building new coal power plants. At that time, I think China's overseas investment on coal power just reached zero. So none of the investment from China to coal power plant overseas. So that we can say, I mean, at least from the Chinese government, I mean, is quite, our commitment is quite powerful. So I think that's also related to the following suggestion from our perspective. And the next slide, please. So, however, China's overseas power investments are distributed very unevenly across regions. According to the data from WS China Overseas Finance Inventory, we call them as a COFI, say as of 2022, Chinese coal power investments was heavily concentrated in Southeast Asia, Southern Asia, and Sub-Sahara Africa, together accounting for 83% of total. So that's in the past, say. And by contrast, say China's investment in solar and wind power remained relatively limited in some of this same region. So especially in Southeast Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, for example, their share were only around 2%. So it's quite limited in this region for the investment on solar. I think, say, although these regions having previously attracted a large share of coal investments. So I think that's really the independent investments on coal power generation in these regions. And well, the investment in other regions from China really increased, but for this region, is still very limited. I think that's also this to how to really change this situation is how really jointly efforts from two sides, China and Indonesia. And I think it's really the time we all think about that. And also it's really the time, I mean, we'll work together. Next slide, please. Okay, I think, I mean, well, we just reviewed, say, Indonesia, a country with extremely potential in the global energy transition. I mean, of course, Indonesia we are so excited. I mean, Indonesia has set up very ambitious and inspiring renewable energy targets. I mean, through the series of important policy frameworks as shown in this table, I think. I mean, these policies really outline a clear vision for Indonesia's energy future with a significant expected roles for solar, wind, and energy storage and green hydrogen by 2030, 2050, and 2060. So it's quite encouraging information. And but I understand there are some issues and barriers, I mean, remains, and there's a gap actually between these ambitious targets and actual implementation. I think by 2024, Indonesia installed capacity of solar and wind power still, I mean, reminded less than 1 gigawatts. I think really compared to the targets is quite, I mean, the gap there. And I think that's what we, because we are really pay more attention to, the team really pay more attention to the, say, Indonesia from Southeast Asia, I mean, as our priority country for clean energy and green development. So that's what we really keep eyes and also keep reviewing the targets and also keep reviewing the progress. So, I mean, I think that's also we identify the really big potential for the cooperation. Next slide, please. Okay, so thank you, Eric. I think I will just quickly go through the slides because I mean, we have many studies, but I think for how really cooperate between Indonesia and China is our priority topics. I think, I mean, for the, of course, I mean, like the last speakers, Riyadi just mentioned, say, Indonesia government also has even more ambitious target for solar, like 100 gigawatts. I mean, we can say, I mean, this is also our potential collaboration. And for the how really implement and opportunities for two countries, I think I will just skip this. I mean, next slide, please. I will just talk about the following. What's the following? Yes. Next one, please. Yes. I think for the we would like just compare to the two countries and the disadvantage and advantage. We really think is our opportunity to collaborate. I mean, we can have the same objectives of increase renewable energy and also ensure the supply chain resilience and also regional industry decarbonization. So as our objectives, and also for the solution we can from the policy or the momentum and incentives, we all call them as a policy, as a government, Riyadi just mentioned, G2G. So, and also the market is really the market solutions and the motivation is really like the P2P. And also we could have the enabler, like the tools and the capacity building together. So I think that's really we already collaborate with IESR and also our Chinese partner Korea, which is a closer partnership with IESR to have the partnership between two countries. It's really the stakeholders, including the government, including the think tank, including the business, I think, and also finance or investors. So I think it's a really good opportunity. We should collaborate now, more deeply and to really create the future for the two countries, people. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Hong, for your insightful presentation. And also, I would like this suggestion action that you propose, like increase renewable energy investment, ensure supply chain resilient, and also regional industry decarbonization. And from your presentation, we see that China has successfully transformed its country clean energy supply chain, as you mentioned in your presentation about manufacturing, construction, and also investment. And in your perspective, what are the key drivers behind this successful, and which lesson are most relevant for Indonesia in the context of developing its ecosystem, Ms. Hong? Please.
Yeah, I think it's I think actually China already have a long way, from the undeveloped, from the very wrong, to in the past 4 decades, I have to say. At that time, really China opened the door. I think whole country and also the industry and also people are really benefited from the open door policy. So in this case, China can really say the global was really the most advantage. And China, what can China do? In this case, from solar PV, from wind, that's as a beginning. So really set up the manufacturers and also produce the products and deliver to the clients globally. I think that's really starting point. So it's of course there are some situation changed, and the Chinese government really start up the domestic market. So in this case, we need the demands market to allow the industry or the economic really play some role. So that's really like you just with the driver really the need to develop, need to economic develop. So that's really the drivings from government and from each individuals in China. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Ms. Hong, for your explanation. So I will highlight the need of developing market and demand is key to achieve this success. Thank you so much, Ms. Hong. And before we move to the next panelist, I would like to encourage all participants to share your question in the chat book. And also I will invite you to fill the feedback QR form that will appear on your screen. Yeah, thank you for filling the QR form. And now we move to the third speaker, my colleague, Mas Alvin Putra Sidwi Nugraha, Head of Power System Modeling. Mas Alvin will present a solar PV supply chain in Indonesia. Mas Alvin, the floor is yours.
Mas Arif, and good afternoon, distinguished panelists and participants of this webinar. It is a great honor for me to be able to present and share our views on what are the opportunities of Indonesia-China cooperation to strengthening green technology advancement in Indonesia. So Can you see my screen yet? Yes. Okay. Thank you. So in my presentation, I would like to specifically talk about a specific technology which is rising very quickly in the last few years in globally, which is the solar PV supply chain. And I think in this Indonesia-China cooperation framework, we would like to explore what are the opportunities, then what are the bottlenecks that are been going on in Indonesia in advancing such technologies. So I would like to open this presentation on why we are focusing on solar energy because the obvious answer is solar energy is the global champion of renewable development all across the globe. So just last year, globally we installed almost 600 gigawatts of solar energy and other types of renewables, and also including fossil power plants. The addition not even reaching like 50 or like 50 gigawatts globally. So it's almost like 10 times bigger in capacity terms, obviously, because uh, this is driven mainly by the technology cost and the advancement of solar PV modules that has dropped significantly in cost and also increased in efficiency in the last few years. And the top installer of this technology is China. And China has installed and doubled almost like 4 times their installed capacity of solar PV in the last 5 years. And if we talk about installing solar power plants globally, before 2020, almost all of this installation of solar plants are driven by interventions such as subsidies, such as feed-in tariff. But after 2020, it almost all over the globe, in all over the markets, it's all this revolution on solar is driven by market incentives and also like market decisions. It's just an undeniable that solar energy has become so cheap. And especially this is relevant in our region, in our Southeast Asia region. But unfortunately, Indonesia lags behind regional peers in terms of like speeding up their solar capacity in the last 5 years. And also, China is the biggest installer, but they also is the biggest manufacturers of these technologies. So overwhelmingly, above 90% of all solar supply chain, starting from polysilicon production, ingot and wafer silicon production, cell and solar modules, are produced and manufactured and shipped from China. And whether this China dominance on this solar PV technology landscape has benefited us with a rapid decline of technology costs and also massive improvement and efficiency, some of the countries are beginning to diversify production capacity in their own countries. For example, Southeast Asia is seemingly increasing their solar PV manufacturing capacity. To be specific, in Vietnam, in Malaysia, and also in Indonesia. This is very relevant because Southeast Asia is one of the biggest markets for Chinese solar PV technology. Almost 25% of the total exported PV products coming out from China is shipped to the Southeast Asia region. So it is very important for Southeast Asia country to also diversify their supply chain on this global photovoltaic technology. And this is also apparent that the Southeast Asia countries is also aspire to be a global player in solar manufacturing. This is shown by the monthly solar module export from the Southeast Asia country to the US in the last maybe 1 or 2 years, because but globally Southeast Asia countries serve around 9 to 10% of global solar module demand, and they have also some advantages in certain markets in the past. For example, like Southeast Asia solar module export to the US has risen significantly, although it has been halted by recent tariff policies by the US. But industrial capacity-wise, this is present a great opportunity for Southeast Asia country to have an industrial end-to-end integration and market diversification to be able to scale up their domestic solar manufacturing capacity. And zooming in into Indonesia's policy landscape on solar, the latest official planning document, which is the RUKN or National and General Electricity Plan, long-term plan for Indonesia up until 2060, envision solar as one of the main electricity suppliers in the foreseeable future up until 2060. And the cumulative solar capacity for Indonesia is projected to be around 110 gigawatts by 2060. And this has also been reflected in the PLN's RUPTL or the business plan, which is envisioned around 17 gigawatts of new utility scale projects of solar up until 2034. And also, I would like to talk about another key future solar demand in Indonesia. For example, we have see a big rise in rooftop solar in Indonesia, and also Indonesia is visioning to be one of the global green hydrogen production. And also Indonesia is also keen to decarbonize their industrial complexes, for example, like nickel processing and also also other steel and industrial processes, and solar could be one of the solutions. And also, I would like to talk about the 100 gigawatt solar program or vision by the president that also focused on decentralized solar and diesel replacement program, which serve as one of the key solar demand in the upcoming 2, 3, or up until 5 years. But let's jump in deeper into China-Indonesia investment landscape in the last 5 years. While still dominated by coal and nickel processing, Chinese investment in Indonesia has started to shift into green technology. We can see that most of them still in the EV manufacturing as part of like this nickel downstreaming. They also focusing on battery supply chain for EVs, but also they are looking towards like solar PV manufacturing in Indonesia, and the solar PV share of Chinese investment in Indonesia begins to grow significantly. And if we see dive deeper into the Indonesia solar PV industry, the FDI from China-based manufacturing is really given a large impact into Indonesia's manufacturing capacity in solar PV supply chain. For example, the existing, the upcoming production capacity in Indonesia, 6 of the leading companies are affiliated with China-based production, which also help into expanding this industrial capacity and production capacity. But currently, local modules are still like 40% until 60% more expensive than imported ones. So the smaller manufacturers in Indonesia still reliant on imported raw components, which is play a big part of the total cost in production. So in order to be able to be competitive for domestic manufacturers, they need to like integrate into a more upstream processes. But inconsistency in regulation, complicated and lengthy process, and limited domestic market for solar energy is a big hurdle for Indonesian-based manufacturers. It's also the same thing on the upstream facilities in Indonesia. We currently Indonesia do not have upstream facilities in solar manufacturing, but if backed by the right policy, the FDI from Chinese companies and also financiers could lay the foundation for upstream production of PV production and supply chain in Indonesia. So I would like to continue on the what are the gaps in Indonesia holding back PV manufacturing ambition? There are 4 aspects to this. The first one being the markets, because there are limited markets for Indonesian solar PV, and also like low earth absorption of domestic solar modules, and also significantly higher cost of solar PV compared to imported modules. And also on the manpower side, there are still skill gap on latest PV technology and also limited testing personnel and also experience on developing cutting edge PV technology. And the industrial capacity, we have some production capacity here in Indonesia, but still limited into assembly facility. So there are no upstream component, then also limited testing infrastructure, and also limited availability of high quality supporting components. And lastly, research and development, we are still very limited on R&D activities and also research funding allocation and inadequate synergy between industries and also our um, research and academic institution. So I would like to close my presentation with the opportunities for Indonesia and China-Indonesia cooperation for boosting Indonesia's domestic PV manufacturing. And it is important to note that China and Indonesia are built on very different socioeconomic and political backgrounds, so context are matters when adopting these successful policy measures. For example, like market, to be able to resolve the bottlenecks on market in Indonesia, the Indonesia-China cooperation could provide like financing packages for utility scale projects to be able to close some of these RUPTL based projects and also like target based phase LCR or TKDN, and also export market positioning and using Indonesia as a manufacturing hubs for regional markets. And for manpower, this is very important to build also a stronger P2P relation between China and Indonesia. There are opportunity to have a knowledge transfer via joint venture structures and also reverse talent mobility. So placing Indonesian talents in Chinese manufacturing hubs to be able to regain new knowledge, new experience, and also for industrial capacity in Indonesia, and we need to like leverage untapped upstream strengths, for example, like nickel, aluminum, silica potential into PV supply chain, and also to have a specific cluster-based industrial zones. And lastly, this is also very important for Indonesia as well, because we're still lacking of this industrial and academia synergy. So industry and university collaboration can also very beneficial to Indonesian PV ecosystem and also innovation incentive to be able to fund this research and development in new PV technologies in Indonesia. And thank you for the time, and I give the floor back to Mr. Arif.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mas Alvin, for your insightful presentation and detailed information that you provide. And you mentioned Indonesia has strong potential renewable energy, but the domestic solar industry and market is still developing. And I think my question is, what are the key gap in Indonesia solar PV supply chain today? And you also mentioned at least there are four elements like market, manpower, research and development, and industrial capacity. And in your opinion, how we can address and tackle it? I mean, not only from piloting project implementation, but also perhaps policy. Please, Mas Alvin.
Yes, thank you, Mas Arif, for the question. I think it's very, very important, but it's also a very difficult topic to be discussing on. So I think Indonesia has a structural problems in terms of developing and accelerating renewable energy development in Indonesia. So in order to be able to gain the maximum benefit from these Indonesia-Chinese cooperation, there are some homeworks that the Indonesian government need to do. For example, like one of the aspects being markets. So right now, the market's avenues are very limited. Only RPTL and the rooftop is being limited by the quota system. So basically, very limited market. But like for example, Chinese investment are sticking to like build data centers, as Pak Riyadi already mentioned, for example. But they lack of avenues to build like solar or like renewable energy supply, which is very very challenging if they want to invest in Indonesia. So I think there are some still internal homeworks and synergies and also policies, right policies to be able to 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 maximize the benefits of this Indonesia China, because China has the knowledge capacity, they have the experience to install and produce these technologies, and also they have the financing. It is all of the three very important components of this renewable advancement in Indonesia. So I think that's the main thing we need to do to be able to really reap the highest benefit of this cooperation.
Thank you so much, Mas Alvin. I think I will highlight that we have still internal homework that the need of energy, and we can use Indonesia-China cooperation to increase this solar future supply chain in the future. Thank you so much, Mas Alvin. Well not, and this is an interesting topic, and I have further question, and also believe that participant has question, but we will hold that until the Q&A session. And for the last finalist, I would like to invite Miss Tingli, Chief Representative and Managing Director, Rocky Mountain Institute, China, who will present unlocking the potential for clean technology and innovation deployment from China to Indonesia. Ms. Tingli, the floor is yours.
Thank you all for having me. I'm privileged to join the webinar and also sharing some insights on unlocking the potential for clean technology and innovation cooperation between China and Indonesia. I will certainly share some stock-taking observations as well as forward-looking thoughts focus on clean technology and China-Indonesia cooperation. Next. Next. I came from RMI, Rocky Mountain Institute, which is a global think tank focusing on energy transition. We believe in the approach. Let's just talk about a little bit of approach, because we have been advancing altogether of clean energy transition, climate change, combination, etc. for many years, and many people ask what is the best approach? What we learned from the past decades in China and globally. So from what we observed, there is a kind of approach which is called target-guided, policy-supported, and market and innovation-driven approach. So in other words, usually people also call it like a bottom-up and top-down. So both are very important for successful energy transition. And if we can combine these three elements, policy, targets, and market innovation-driven, we can reach the tipping points. On the screen, you can see there is a point called tipping points, which is meaning that the cost competitiveness across the market, and then you can achieve towards the scale of change we wish to achieve. So next. Next. Is this combination approach for market-driven worked out? The answer is yes. We all know that the energy transition actually in the last decades in the kind of speed that exceeds anyone's expectation. The trajectory, as you can see on the screen, of new added solar capacity, wind power capacity, even EV shells of cells and battery cells all fit into the same, we call it S-curve, right? S-curve of market success and the scaled up change we wish to see. Next. And China, I think we lost one page. So I think there is a slide, trying just to show some examples. We lost the slide, right? Successful clean technology development in the past 10 years. Solar generation in China increased by 35 times, wind 9 times, and even batteries scaled even faster. And also on my screen is a policy, right? Is the right screen? Yes. So talking about the targets, I mentioned targets first. Of course, we observed a strong role of the targets in China. There is in the past 15 years, a consistent, enhanced, and a conformative climate target since Copenhagen in 2009 until last year. the 2015, the peaking timeline, 2020, the carbon neutrality goal, and then last year in 2025, the new announced NDC. They all helped sending long-term signals to the market and effectively guided investment directions. Next. We also observed the indispensable role of policy. As I said, policy is very important. You need policy in place, right? There is a very comprehensive 1+N climate policy system. I'm sure that you must have heard that policy system, right? From the overarching the general ones to some sector and topic specific ones, providing solid support, including incentives. I won't just mention, subsidies. Of course, subsidies is important, but there is a broader kind of, support by called incentives that which, is especially helpful, especially during very early stage of technology development and early stage of any transition in certain sectors in particular. Next. And next, please. So China did try very hard to, besides policies, and did also tried very hard to, no, I think I need the previous one. Yeah, go back to the previous slide. So this is the, try to explain, besides the policies, besides the commitment of the targets, the government also all the stakeholders tried very hard to maximum all resources, including finance resources, and use market mechanisms to trigger innovation. Because if you want breakthrough technologies, if you want innovation to be the driving force, then you need to maximum the market resources as much as you can. For example, one of the significant practices in China is a policy-oriented industrial funds, which provided crucial funding resources for catalyzing climate technology innovation. This is a very interesting practices in the past years in China. Next. Talking about clean technology, we know that, we all know that climate techs are the most important drivers to decarbonization, right? If you look at the right side of the slide, it indicated that clean power at the supply side, meaning generation of clean power, and then electrification at the demand side are two major contributors to significant decarbonization results. Together, they can help us address, addressing nearly 80% of the climate and energy transition needs. Next. To give a close look of Asia in general, right? So we know that Asia is leading global growth right now. We are leading the global economic growth and energy transition at the same time. But of course, we all are, even including China, we all in the middle of navigating complex transition because of the, the rocking rise of electricity demand, the significant industrial growth and transition and industry transition as well, and also the rising consumption side, like transportation, like building, and all in massive needs of clean tech to help provide solutions, especially alternatives to fossil fuels. Next. So how to advance clean technology cooperation between us? Some thoughts to share. To begin with, we believe that priority should be given to the large-scale deployment of mature and affordable renewable energy technologies. We do have them. 10 years ago, we don't have them. They're either not available or they're too expensive. But now everyone have access to those type of technologies, such as solar and wind, that can achieve parity with fossil fuels. For example, the figures on the screen that shows clean energy technologies identified by China's Ministry of Science and Technology, as well as one thing that is very interesting is the best to go of China energy solutions. Anyone of you have heard from the Chinese government announcement just last November? It's very, very interesting. By National Energy Administration, they prepared a shopping list for best energy available to everyone, which includes 5 major categories and 60 specific atoms, all available, all deployable, and all scalable. And I don't think they are expensive at all. And at the same time, at the third-party institution like RMI, we observed that the transition from a technology list to local implementation, wherever it is, involves critical intermediary steps. You need something in between. Specifically, on the application side, early stage projects planning and designing require in-depth assessment and quantification of local demands and the relevant conditions to form investment-ready projects. I heard many of the previous speakers mention the, what is the need, what the local conditions. I really think it's so, amazing, so significant, because that is a very critical condition for to inform any investment decision making, and also and only after all this kind of communication and preparation, and can subsequent investment and deployment proceed swiftly. Next. Next, please. Yeah, so in terms of technology categories, there are market opportunities. I just want to highlight it very quickly. Two major, application scenarios. One is a new type of green infrastructure, and another is green low carbon industrial parks. I heard many, good recommendations from colleagues, but we are sharing the similar kind of observation. But I just want to highlight that, green and smart infrastructure serves as an important application scenario for low carbon technologies. In most developing countries, traditional infrastructure is a long established area. That is very true. While new infrastructure represents a new frontier, and both of them requires new approach to benefit from the clean technology and also fit the need of decarbonization. And most of us are still under industrialization process. We're still doing our industry, right? So which is a key energy demand. Many of the energy demand came from the industry process, right? And resources, and they're also the major resources emission. But also, I want to highlight that there are also opportunities for clean tech deployment. I'm talking not just green finance. If you're talking about money and investment, I'm talking about transition finance, which is so significant and so critical to all of us. So clean tech deployment and also breakthrough technologies. In particular, for example, China has been pushing low carbon industrial parks for years, for more than 15 years. And last year, that they launched a zero carbon industrial park initiative at national level. And the most advanced application scenario and business model are emerging very quickly, just starting from this year. So given the industrial parks and special economic zones have become important geographic units for driving economic growth and sustainable development in most of the South countries, South areas, right? They are the key scenario for cooperation and testing ground and pioneers for low carbon technology and business model innovation. Next. I came to my. Oh, okay. So sorry, it's okay. So I'm just talking about the previous slides. In addition to the large-scale deployment of mature technology, jointly advancing technology innovation could also be a key part of any long-term strategy. I mean, we need deployment of a mature one, but we need to continue to push forward to push the breakthroughs, right? We believe that one key word is very important, which we call the next generation green energy. which is, following wind and power, wind power and solar. They are the first generation, but a lot of investment attractions and also, using application scenarios happened, in the next generation green energy, represented by bioenergy-based green hydrogen, synthetic ammonia, bio-natural gas, sustainable air fuel, SAF, right? And also green methanol, green ethanol, and they hold enormous potentials. And there is a forecast by 2050 global demand for bioenergy expected to exceed 100 exajoules, equivalent to 23.9 billion tons of oil equivalent. So for Southeast Asia countries, including Indonesia, biomass is a major source of next generation green energy, accounting for as much as 60% of resources, including agricultural and forestry residues, right? Therefore, cooperation on the development of next generation green energy efforts offers significant co-benefits and synergistic value, and should be our one of the focus of any cooperation in future. So this is the last page. So China, from what I observed here, based in Beijing, China is firmly committed to pursuing low carbon development and pursuing high level opening up to the world, and willing to cooperate in all fashions with its neighbors to achieve, better and greener economy. I see that's very determined from the top to the locals and at all stakeholders. So the key to success lies in active cooperation and bold innovation. That is no doubt on that, and together generating incremental value across the entire value chain. That is also very key to any cooperation. We believe if we work together, there's a chance to build the world's largest green production field, and also the market in Asia, to drive and contribute to global clean energy. So that is my presentation and sharing. Thank you so much once again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Tingley, for the presentation. And there are a lot insight. You mentioned about the role of policy in providing support, incentive, and also maximizing market loss, as well as identify top key technologies from the large-scale renewable energy technology to AI-driven emission reduction technology. I interested in the last slide in your presentation. You mentioned about the unlocking next generation green technologies together and share a vision, build Asia largest green market to drive a global transition. And if I look at that presentation, I'm thinking that it is not only about bilateral cooperation, but also can cover Asia region. And you also mentioned about the two possible scheme. The first is green infrastructure, and the second is green industrial area or park. This is a great idea, but do you see if there is a barrier that need to be addressed for both countries to achieve that cooperation scheme? So if we can identify the barrier in the very beginning, we can try working on how thinking to implement it or proposing it to our government or relevant stakeholder. Thank you.
Yes, indeed, that is a very comprehensive, good question. As I said, that I think all of us, if we wish to promote any kind of, future very promising, either it's green transition or green market or whatever success, we probably need to look at all the layers of the conditions, including what kind of policies need in place. Sometimes you cannot just skip the policy side. If there is no policy to support, for example, the power market or the emission trading system, and then you cannot use it. There is, you lose opportunities or on that. And certainly also the market-driven forces. When we look at market, we have to respect market. So we have to look into what exactly is the needs over the locals. What is a possible technical routes that is available, and also what kind of business model that can also afford a certain kind of smart investment and also sufficient support to make any projects on the ground happening. So there is different layers of analysis that we need to. Sometimes we find a gap. Sometimes we find there is opportunities. But I think it's we need a plan in advance, and we need a package deal to think through of, you know, from the upstream until the locals, and then to try to do some economic cost-effective analysis, because that is also you know, the returns and also how to benefit the locals and benefits and make it a successful projects commercially, which is also important. It is not just the environmental impacts that we usually, you know, from the organization like us, we of course we care about the environmental impacts, but sometimes you have to also take into full consideration of the business need. What is the business need? What is the business model that is better, you know, fit into you know, the implementation and operational level. So that's just a very, very general. In terms of interest, we also have conducted a lot of specific, you know, projects, you know, focused on captive coal, focused on industrial park, but many good practices, and hopefully I can have fun time to discuss and share with all of you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tingli. So the key is the need to look all layer from a policy, market, and also business model, also plan from upstream into the local. Thank you so much, Ms. Tingli. And we will have a deep discussion on that in Q&A session. But before we move to the Q&A session, I would like to invite all participants to share your question in the chat box. And for those who haven't filled the QR form, I will invite you to fill the form that will appear on your screen. Okay, now we are in the Q&A session. I will open this session in two terms. In each term, the panelists will answer one question, and also I encourage the panelists to answer the question in chat box if there is a question. So for the first question, will go to Pariadi. Pariadi, what are the key barriers preventing Indonesia and China's private sector, especially SME and startup, from collaborating in green industry? And could you share an example or a model of successful cross-border green business collaboration that Indonesia could replicate and scale up?
Sorry, sir. By the way, thank you for the questions. But if you talk about the barriers, there are of course many. You can list down. You know, it's always long. But if you compare with other countries, Indonesia, China is actually moving very fast. It's simply because the characteristic of Chinese businesses, which actually they respond to opportunities very quickly. And also, as long as we can provide the opportunity, they will come basically. But again, you know, that's the level from people to people or business to business. But from the government perspective, I think they need to provide kind of supports. The support can be in terms of policy. If it is for the green industry, like what we are talking today, I think government support is inevitable. That we have to encourage the government to, you know, support activities like this, like you know, matchmaking activities like what we did in RE Invest Forum. But the thing is, what I see, the barrier is more from our side than from China's side. For example, the RUPTL, yeah, the RUPTL is already there, but then PLN up until now has not yet issued any RFP. So that's also the barrier, because in terms of investors, they're already waiting what are project available. But then only a few is making, you know, basically into the market. But most of the project is not in the market. And also this program of 100 gigawatts It's not yet in our PTL. Unless you put it in our PTL, it will not, PLN will not making the effort to make it happen, basically. So I would say the barriers is more on our side than the China side. And you can list down as long as you take, basically. But I think the most important thing is how we can tackle that barrier. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Pariadi. So the key answer is like providing opportunity and also policy support from the government. And next, I will go to Miss Hong Miao. What kind of policy or financial mechanism that could help redirect Chinese investment toward low carbon sector in Indonesia, or is there any existing initiative that we can optimize?
I think it's a really good question. I think this webinar says 76 years of Indonesia and China relationships. I think that means it's a really long history. I think there are so many collaborate, like say from cultural, from exchange, and renewable energy is really the both sides objectives, and also very, very say same driven, and and the two side countries can really have advantage, say, to cooperate. I think there are some available mechanism we can really consider, actually. For example, we can also consider other regions' experience also. In China, I think from the governments, especially the authority of energy or development, NDRC and NEA. So there are some bilateral, say, collaboration agreement on specific renewable energy, for example, investment. I think it's already available. So we can, for the China-Indonesia bilateral, I think the two countries' commitment can really play the role. So I think that's what we can also take advantage of that. Of course, meanwhile, like G2G, P2P, I think there's a business and business, like the companies and companies are already collaborate. From my understanding, because from our, say, key partner from China side, like Korea, and it's very clear, say, some solar PV manufacturer companies already invested in Indonesia. Of course, for those, their market is really the America, Europe, not really a region or the country. I think for the future, because this manufacturer, if it's investment is a success, that means the product should have a market. So in this case, I mean, Indonesia government has targets of installed capacity of renewable energy. So that's a market. I think for the mechanism like, say, partnership, that's what together with IESR and also like partner Korea in China, and also like other peer organizations, and from the each countries, we can really set up the same consensus to promote this government's commitment to, if it's a target there, for example, two countries jointly to develop and invest some capacity of renewable energy projects. So we can really, I mean, from China investors, they will for sure actively play the role in this field. So I think that's really important. Of course, meanwhile, we just pilot some innovation solution in the site. For example, industry park will say, what's the technology really can be practical and doable. So I think, in China, it's also the arguments about a zero carbon industry park, program, but it's really challenge also. So we can just set the timely targets and also the timeline for the pilots, and then really scale up. Meanwhile, for the finance mechanism, like specific fund or from the both sides, we can also have to promote, to set up this kind of specific fund to support renewable energy investment from China to Indonesia. I think all of this have references. I think our team has already has some list. We can really take references from that. I think so. That's a really quite solid and really low-in-hand fruit we can cooperate. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Hong, for your elaborative answer. So I highlight like we need the need of optimizing existing bilateral cooperation mechanism, and also as you mentioned about the need of set up renewable energy capacity target as a market signal, as well as a cooperation and promotion, and also the best part is try to realizing it into project level. And then next, I would like ask my colleague, Mas Alpin, how can Indonesia strategically collaborate with China to build a competitive domestic solar manufacturing ecosystem?
Yes, thank you, Aros, for the question. And I would like to begin my answer with that. If Indonesia wants to be competitive, they need to scale up. So basically, what are the aspects to be scaled up? First of all, is obviously the markets, the domestic markets. We have seen that Indonesia's export is volatile because of the global trade affairs, and some other policy measures from other countries. So we need to strengthen up and build our domestic markets properly and scale the domestic market properly. And also the second one, in order to be industrially competitive, Indonesia needs to also not only scale up in capacity but also to integrate end to end of the solar supply chain in Indonesia. For example, right now we are still limited to assembly factories, assembly sites, which is we need to move upwards the supply chain ladder into the more upstream and middle stream and upstream. For example, like high technology wafer and cells manufacturing, which is very high in productivity and in value addition, which is will be very beneficial in Indonesia economy. So I think the first one is the need to scale up. The second one, we need to look into the long term. So I think in order to look into a long-term future for Indonesia renewable energy future, Indonesia needs to invest into things. The first one is the people. So talent acquisition, talent development, how to integrate education and also industrial needs is very, very important. The second one is to be able to invest in the system. So we need to invest in a system that nurtures both people and the market mechanism. For example, we need to encourage, for example, like clear procurement strategy for solar, for example, and also like we need to build an adequate training and also R&D incentives for like this system to be able to move forward with all the technology advancement in solar PV globally. And also, I would like to note that Indonesia and China cooperation has been going for a while, and we have some of the success, for example, like Indonesia and China in nickel processing. And I think we need to redirect this cooperation and into building more of a green technology supply chain. But I don't think that Indonesia and China should collaborate in ad hoc system. So we need to, Indonesia and China, we need to build like an ecosystem. So ecosystem that both are mutually beneficial for both parties, for Indonesian interest, but also for China and the China interest. And maybe I would say that maybe China is the world leaders for like technology investment and technological advancement. They are also the financing. They know what to do, how to install, how to operate these technologies. But I also think that Indonesia has a lot to offer. Indonesia is one of the biggest economy in the region. We are definitely do not lack in natural resources, and I think Indonesia do not lack in raw talents. We have like inexperienced talents, but for the sake of like raw talents, we're building a stronger diaspora network, and also in China as well. I think that's a very big modalities for us to be able to bridge this technology advancement, and specifically in solar energy development in Indonesia as well. So I think that's my take in this question, Mas Arif.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mas Alvin, for your comprehensive answer. And there is some point that I will highlight, like the scale up, integrate end-to-end product, and then also long term investment in people and also in the system, as well as for research and development, and also ecosystem that mutually for both countries. And the next question, I will go to Ms. Ting. Ms. Ting, how can Indonesia ensure that technology transfer lead to long-term capacity building rather than dependency? Because some of not a critic, but some of are worried that this Indonesia-China cooperation will create dependency. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. I'm quite optimistic because I saw, observed, strong willingness from the government. I, heard about, followed the China-Indonesia energy minister level energy dialogue annually, right? And I heard this year it will be held in China. So this is very intensive, very meaningful, conversation, at a level of policymakers. So I believe that policymakers, of course, they know exactly, what is they must be very, sharp on regarding what kind of policies that is helpful and what is probably not so helpful, right? And what is needed in terms of policy guidance supportive, right? I believe the government will try their best, and also, we also, be part of the technical supporting team for this bilateral cooperation in a formal setting, right? So we are happy to support any kind of technology, analysis, like the category for technologies analysis and deep dive in the local needs, etc. I think that all the third parties, I quite agree with all the colleagues of the ecosystem. We are the ecosystem themselves, and probably the core part of the ecosystem. I think we should also be ready to maximum our, our resources to support this kind of, all channels cooperation, and also the companies. From what I heard from all the stakeholders, all the business companies, whether SOE, state-owned or private sectors, the leading ones, they're all very willingness to explore opportunities to work with Indonesia, work with Southeast Asia, because everybody knows that when work together is the only way to secure or to unlocking any potentials of a future green development opportunity in all terms, right? So they are very ready to cooperate. So certainly there is certain steps from both sides. It's not just Indonesia. Our colleagues on the other side is also here. This side, they need better support to understand the market in a better way, to better prepared, to be available in a better formats. So that is also what I witnessed that and observed, that there is tremendous opportunities for all of us to just be the key pillars to support this kind of cooperation. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Tingley, for your answer. So I will highlight that there is a coordination among both parties from China and Indonesia, and also the most important thing is that technology analysis and also support should and could align with local needs. And we move to the last term in our discussion, but we have a question from Indira from Bifang. Yeah, would like to raise a question related with political situation here in Indonesia, and also the current geopolitical situation, not only the crisis that caused by Middle East conflict, but also perhaps related to United States and also China competition over influence in Southeast Asia region. So the question is, what the best strategy and advice for a green development company or institution for continuing their vision and mission? So in this question, since this question is more about the practicality, I will address it to all distinguished speaker. And the first opportunity is I will give to Pariyadi. Pariyadi, please.
Thank you, Mas Arif, and thank you for the questions. I'm not really sure Indira should be male or female. Anyway, so this is actually the concern of everyone, yeah. Everyone, either from governments, from the corporate sector, and also us, as a member of the society. And the conflict in the Middle East is affecting us, Indonesia, China, and actually this is the good reasons for us to cooperate and the good reason to cooperate in the green transition, basically, because it shows, the conflict shows that we are very much reliance on the fossil fuels, and reliance on fossil fuel is not sustainable. So that's why it's a good argument to expedite, to faster the energy transition, especially in Indonesia. And I think that's also the feeling. That's also the direction from the government, that the Indonesian government want to transition from fossil fuels into renewables. And there is already been established a task force to expedite the electrification of transport, electrification of cooking, from LPG into electric cooking utensils. So basically, this is a good opportunity for investors, good opportunity for businesses to enter into green industries in Indonesia. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pariyadi. Next, I will give opportunity to Ms. Song Miao. Ms. Song Miao, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Eric. I think it's a good question, a very challenging question. I think it's because every country in the world, cannot escape from this situation. I think how really set up the strategic, strategy, for the country's security and also supply chain, resilient supply chain is for every country's new topics. I think in the past, we just project about low carbon, about green, but to say the future, we have to think about security and resilient. I think it's really, really the time for the countries. China really present some thoughts, and also because we experienced in the past, and we really, China really benefits from this transition, and especially for the export and for the trade. And of course, China's government intended to have carbon targets and the carbon peak and the neutrality objectives. So continue. And although some arguments about if it's really impact economic negatively, but I think we can say we are really doing some study and research using the modeling to say there is no negative impacts. So I think we can do the energy transition and the economic transition well, meanwhile align with the economic development. So I think for China renewable energy, for example, there are so many innovations. China is also facing very challenging situation now, especially for the power sector. There's really the time for power reforming, because there will be more and more renewable energy, in the grid. in the system, but it's not really stable. It really depends on the, say, the sources. So that's also the issues China is facing. And but we really benefit from experience like really distributed. For example, distributed system can really provide power locally in the site, and especially in the like the industry, agricultural, and other sectors. So there are so many experience and lessons learned we can share with Indonesia. I mean, we can really collaborate. That's also the collaborate, because we have a policy, we have the, say, the business, we have the finance practice. All those are really, I mean, work together. Not only, we cannot really depend on one solution or one perspective. That's really the cross-cutting, cross-cutting. I mean, it's true in China. I think that's really China's government in the past provided so many subsidies, but everybody can say, well, the demands is scale up. Scale up, I mean, the subsidies could be withdrawn. So that's really the government will not, don't necessary to pay such public money on the subsidized. So that's the way we already passed. I think we can really share how China do. Of course, it's for Indonesia references only, because Indonesia has a different situation. But at least we can share what is really works in China and may works in Indonesia, and what policy should be modified and adjust according to Indonesia situation. So that's really, I think that's really China's role, not only for the investment, not only for the, say, capacity, industry decarbonization capacity, I mean, collaboration, right? But for some experience and say, lessons learned, sharing, that's also the parts of the capacity building. That's also, I think we will collaborate with think tanks from both countries to do this work also. So I'll stop here. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Ms. Hong. Next, I will move to Mas Alvin. Alvin.
Thank you, Mas Arif, and also thank you, Bu Indira, for the question. I think it's a very, very hard but very relevant question on this: how to tackle this, how to tackle this geopolitical situation, and how to deal with this ongoing energy crisis. And I really agree with the previous answer from Pariadi and Ms. Hong Miao. I think this energy crisis give us a lot of countries a platform to transition into more greener and energy resilience future, especially by leveraging renewable energy sources. But I think we cannot expect this transition to be moved very, very quickly, to be honest. But what I mean by that is that in this geopolitical situation, especially few countries are really have their guard up. They really focus on their domestic side of things, how to deal with this, how to deal with this energy crisis domestically. But of course, this gives more rationale to move to as quickly as possible to move from fossil-based economy and energy supply to like green energy source. But I think sometimes we also can leverage the existing cooperation to minimize and to mitigate short-term shocks and provide short-term solution as well. For example, like Indonesia is really impacted fiscally by this oil fuel crisis, and the prices goes up. And but for example, right now we can also leverage this opportunity to for example, like accelerate some of the ongoing projects. For example, in power sector, oil is mainly used for like diesel in remote areas in Indonesia. So this gives us a platform which we can leverage in a very short term, maybe 1 year, 2 year to really replace these diesel power plants with solar and batteries, which we can also learn a lot from China, how to develop these off-grid decentralized power plants and to really cut down our domestic oil consumption. So this short-term solution can also like be replicated for the long term as well. I think this and you can also like build like short-term policy or short-term measures for for this emergency situation. For example, we can really reassess our LCR requirement or local content requirement for this special and also this emergency situation to be able to minimize the shocks into the society and also the economy. So I think that's from my side.
Thank you so much, Mas Alpin. Next, I will move to Ms. Dingley.
Well, thank you so much. The three very quick points to reflect and also echo the previous speakers and agree with all the good points. But the first thing I think for clean and green, either companies or the people like us working in this area, I think we should reconfirm and build our confidence. The confidence in green and sustainable development, in renewables, in clean, clean growth, economic growth way, right? So we should be confident that we are representing the future, and that should be the directions that globally or regionally or each country should determine to make them determined to go. But at the same time, even we are representing the future, you cannot just stop there. You need to be very serious and continues to promote innovation, to be more continues to be more reliable, more affordable, more efficient, and more smart, right? So this is the things that we need to as a starting point and baseline for whatever kind of challenges we wish to address, right? And secondly, I think in this fragile world and a lot of challenges ahead of anyone, especially for those advanced green and clean technologies companies or business or sectors. I think it's your obligation to provide more kind of available solutions to people, because in this fragile circumstances, people need energy access more than ever. People need achievable and affordable energy and energy security more than ever. I think the clean and green technology and the companies happen to be the most appropriate kind of supporting elements in this challenging world. That is very much for sure. We see many things happening, not just here, but also in some regions like when warfares happen. But you see the green distributive technology and also green energy happen to help the ordinary people to overcome all these difficulties. I found it's really meaningful and really should be encouraged for all of us to push forward. And certainly, I feel that we have to realize either technology, clean technology or green energy, we are just the tools. We are just the solutions. What we are aiming at is to really support understanding the sector-based industry or sector transition, what they need, because they are really the scenario and the consumer side. We need to understand better, not just from the clean side, the green side, but also the real economy, the real sector side, and then to figure out how to better support their transition. It is not our transition. It is the whole economy and the whole society transition. So it's better understand the business need, the sector needs, and people's need, I think is the best, best approach to embrace this challenging world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Miss Tingli. We are in the end of discussion, but before I conclude the webinar, I would like to express our gratitude to our distinguished panelists, Pak Riyadi, Miss Hong, Mas Alpin, and also Miss Tingli. Thank you so much for your insight and your time. And in conclusion, I would like to emphasize that we have an opportunity to advance this bilateral cooperation that could benefit for both countries. And in terms of the modalities, there is strong connection between all actor level, from the government to government, business to business, and also people to people. And China has a best practice and also experience on shifting their economics to green development and clean energy as a policy anchor. And some bilateral activity already intact, namely policy dialogue, technical action, capacity building, project demonstration, and also a special fund. However, to strengthening this cooperation in technical and financial cooperation perspective, the bottleneck need to be addressed, like policy alignment gap and limited successful business cases currently constrain the scale and the pace of cooperation. There is also a need a matching between China experience and capacity with Indonesia demand clean energy demand. And for the next opportunity and suggestion action, we identified several action. The first is focusing on increasing renewable investment, ensure a supply chain resilient and regional industry decarbonization. And the second is the unlocking a next generation green technology together, and share a vision build Asia largest green market to drive global economy. And the third is encouragement on cooperation related to a supply chain that cover a market, manpower, research and development, and also industrial capacity. And the last is optimizing existing platform, both from the government and also from business to business platform. That is the conclusion of our today's discussion. Once again, thank you so much for distinguished panelists and all participants who attend this webinar. I will stop here and give the floor back to Master Ceremony Anin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Arif, for moderating the session so effectively. And also a special thank you to our distinguished speakers, Mr. Riyadi Suparno, Ms. Hong Miao, Mr. Alvin Putrasis Dwi Nugraha, and Ms. Ting Li for your valuable insights and contributions. Also, sincerely appreciate all participants for your active engagement throughout today's session. Before we conclude, I would like to kindly remind everyone once again to fill in the attendance and feedback form that's shared in the chat box previously and by scanning the following QR posted on this slide. As we come to the end of today's webinar, we hope that this session has provided meaningful insights into strengthening Indonesia-China cooperation in clean energy and green development. We look forward to continuing this important dialogue and fostering stronger collaboration in the future. On behalf of Institute for Essential Services Reform, thank you very much for your participation. Have a great day and see you in our next events. Good afternoon.